Hi everyone, so here is the long-awaited training on sugar cravings. And despite hundreds of articles, books, and I'm sure we've all read all of them, really dedicated to encouraging people to cut back their sugar intake, it remains one of the most common nutrition concerns. There's tips and tricks out there to help people kick their sugar habit. However, some of these are really focused on substituting it for something else, which can be good, but doesn't necessarily delve down to the problem of the matter. So you can use all the fruits, dates, maple syrup, everything that's out there, but if you're not going to solve the problem, it's going to stick with you. Okay, so there's four main topics I'm going to cover, and these are dehydration, stress, eating carbohydrates, and digestion. Okay, so it may sound quite scientific-y, but hopefully I'll try and simplify it. I am a scientist by heart, so it is me. So one of the things, if you're asking yourself, why do I crave sugar? If you've seen the response from this post, you know you are not alone. Sugar craving is one of the most, if not the most common cravings out there. So the first thing we have to do is understand where it's coming from. So the first one we go focus on is dehydration. And this is probably the most common cause of sugar cravings, and one which can be addressed quite simply. In order to kick or at least reduce our sugar habit, we must understand why we're craving sugar in the first place. So dehydration, lack of water, and this can often be mistaken for the sugar cravings, because often we will feel this early afternoon after lunchtime, a little slump it in the afternoon, and we get into the habit of going and reaching for something sugary. So a lack of fluid or water can make it more difficult for our bodies to metabolize the sugars that it needs for energy. I won't go into it too much, but literally we need water for our body to function, to even fuel our bodies. So if you're not getting that, then our body's unable to fuel it. So we may have sugar, we may have fuel in our system, but because we don't have enough water, it's kind of going through a bit slower and we're not getting enough energy out. So first and foremost, go to the water. If you're feeling a bit sluggish, if you're feeling a few cravings, go and drink a glass of water. And learn to bring awareness to the situation. Think about it. Have I drunk much water today? When was the last time I drank water? Are you thirsty? Because your brain does not know the difference between thirst and hunger. So go for thirst first. And that's my new strapline. And aim to drink half your body weight in ounces of water per day, but across the day. Okay, so number one is water. Okay, so start to think. Before you reach for something, stop. Have I drunk much water today? And we'll take it from there. Next one is stress. We cannot talk about sugar cravings without talking about stress. And cravings come in two forms, emotional and physical. I do have notes here because I want to make sure that I've got the right information for you. So emotional, which we can all associate with, is down to comfort food. And that provides a temporary escape. Then you've got the physical, where the consumption of food leads to increase of dopamine levels, which is your happy signal transmitter. But this is only temporary boost in pleasure. So we all know you have some chocolate and a little happy boost, and then after that it's short-lived, and then we begin to crave sugar again shortly thereafter, and there begins the vicious cycle. So we've got stress causes sugar cravings, we consume sugar, which causes stress. So again, think about your primary sources of stress just now. There's a lot of it which has happened over the last year, But one thing I really try and focus on are things that we can control and things that we can't, okay? What happens with this pandemic and coming out of it is beyond our control. We cannot control that. Same as if something happened last week, we cannot change that. So we should not be stressing about it. I know it's easier said than done, and I have to tell myself sometimes, but literally look at it. Can I control it? Yes. Let's go and do something about it. Can you control it? No. Let's try and move on, and I can help you with mindset. I can help you with personal growth through that as well. And it's about focusing on the positive side of things. But there may be other stresses. It may be financial, it may be relationships, it may be your health and fitness. Try and pinpoint what that stress may be and be honest with yourself, okay? It's not easy sometimes, but be honest with yourself. Next one is carbohydrates. So believe it or not, overconsumption of even healthy carbohydrates can lead to sugar cravings, because carbohydrates can be broken into three classes. Fibrous, which you get from your veg and your really nutrient dense carbohydrates. Starchy complex, like your potatoes, and then simple, like your sweets. So although it might be easy to understand why you get sugar cravings from your simple carbohydrates, what you may not realise is that you can get the sugar cravings from your healthy ones as well. Because even consuming complex carbohydrates in excess, you're asking your body's insulin to work overtime to store these sugars. Eventually the body's insulin becomes overworked and our bodies become insulin resistant. So insulin is what takes the sugar into our cells and helps in a very simplified process, and just helps use the sugar as fuel. So eventually eventually it stays in your bloodstream, meaning glucose is not able to enter your cells, and then it's just circulating in your bloodstream. So eventually your cells become starved of fuel, and even though you may be thinking you're eating the right things, granola, sweet potatoes, things like that, it's simply too much carbohydrates for one day. And the nutrition plan, which I focus on, really ensures that we're looking at the right balance of carbohydrates, veg, fruit, protein, everything else in between as well. So the main thing to do is focus on adding more protein and fat to your diet. Fat, oh my God, fat is good for you. We need fat in our diet, but we need healthy fats such as avocados, cheeses, nuts, but again, in the right portion size. So we can look to balance out our food groups. I was going to say macronutrients, but literally macronutrients is your food groups, okay? So we can look to balance them out, and so you're not eating more of one than you should do. And again, the nutrition plans that I use focus on little pots, so we know exactly how much we should be eating throughout the day, which is fantastic. Now comes my kind of really thought around this, and this is down to digestion. So point number 4 is digestion. And newsflash, our bodies are not garbage disposals, okay? We cannot keep on putting rubbish in it and expect our bodies not to react, okay? So although many people tend to think they can eat whatever they want and the digestive tract will sort it all out, that's not the case, okay? Our digestive system is basically a delicate ecosystem of flora, microorganisms, and bacteria. All day long, these little things are fighting for space and making sure that they're getting rid of the bad bacteria that are invading the body, which and this may be from a populated diet, really bad diet of processed food, sugars, alcohol. And so literally a lack of the good bacteria, because it's being overthrown by your bad bacteria, can basically tip over that balance that is needed in our gut, because these bad bacteria literally live and thrive on sugar. So if these are ruling your gut, then guess what? Those sugar cravings will happen. So this is where I really think of our bodies quite simply. So our bodies in simplest form use glucose, sugar, to fuel, okay? So, but in its simplest form, it's got to recognise it as well. So think about the amount of processed food. So think about the situation that you can have massive takeout, pizza, chips, everything else, and you're full. But within half an hour to an hour, you're looking for something else to eat, because that takeout was so processed, your body doesn't recognise it. It cannot gather the fuel that it needs from that food because it's in a form it does not recognise. Your body is biological. It does not recognise that rubbish that has went in it. Don't get me wrong, it's good to have things down and again, but just not every day, because your digestive tract is just going insane. It just cannot cope. Okay, so it's very much about, think about what you're putting in your body and what your body can use as fuel, but also the environment in that it sits. I know that's quite scientific, but I'm a scientist by heart, so it's what it is. So therefore, one of the biggest tips is focus on limiting foods that excuse me, might be harmful to the bacteria in your gut, and focus on adding fermented foods to your diet. Fermented foods like plain yogurt, kefir, which is now available on the shelves, those which are rich in probiotics and help to support the body's beneficial bacteria, as well as fibre-rich foods like onions, garlic, leeks, artichokes, which are rich in prebiotics and act as food for probiotics. So these are the four main causes, okay? 4 main causes. And what we have to think about are the trigger points for those sugar cravings. So you've got to think about digestion. Have you eaten enough? Drunk enough water? Stress. Can you pinpoint some form of stress that's happening in your life that you can control? Not necessarily that you can't. And if you can't control it, bin it. What was the third one? Stress. Carbohydrates. Have you eaten too much have you eaten too many carbohydrates? And think about your body. Think about your think about your gut. Have you listened to your gut? Are you feeding it with the right foods? So that in a nutshell is that. So thinking about this trigger point, I have got a freebie that I'm willing to give to you. So every time that you think about your sugar, every time you go to have that sugar craving, we're going to print out these little worksheets. And before you think about it, you're going to think about what trigger point is it that's making you. It may even just be an act of boredom, an act of habit that we have to get out of. But it may be something more deeper, and sugar cravings may be real because of the amount of processed foods, etc. that are in your diet. So if you want this freebie, you've watched to the end of the video, give me a yes please, and it's yours, and we can work through it together. So hope this was useful. I love talking science, so I apologise if it was too sciencey, too technical, but I'm more than happy to do any form of training again. And yeah, have a lovely day.